So yeah, to start over, words
Sure.
have been important for all of us. Words have been crucial to all kinds of learning and all kinds of development that we have gone through throughout our life. We've written for exams, we have written to
Yeah.
express. We've also written because we've gone through that creativity surge. Some of us in our teen age, and some of us have been consistent with it and taken up professions around it. But
Right.
writing to heal yourself was new to me. Uh,
Yes.
the concept of Dear Diary, I saw them in the movie. Some of the relatives and parents would have also suggested, teachers would have suggested some of you to keep a journal or write it out when you're feeling an intense emotion taking over you. So today we have with us Sarah. I welcome you to Humanizing Life, Sarah. Sarah is a journalist. She's a writer, and she's also a journaling therapist.
Yep.
She's going to be telling us a lot about writing and writing your emotions down, more importantly. So, yes, welcome aboard, Sarah. But before we can start with a formal question session round, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Yes, of course. Thank you all for joining in the conversation and thank you for having me. My name is Sarah Hosseini. I'm a writer. I'm a journalist and recently, within the past year, a journal therapist. So basically, my whole life is set up around words and finding all different ways to use them and to get out emotions and messages, and grow and heal.
Beautiful, beautiful. Sarah, on that note, please let's start with the very, very basic question here. What is journaling therapy to start with?
Sure. Well, journaling, I guess, as therapy has always been a thing. There just wasn't really a name for it. So, what journaling is you're using your words to write down your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions in a really intentional and purposeful way. And you're using particular growth milestones basically to see how far you've come and then kind of where you want to go. And this will be different because you're analyzing your thoughts and your feelings as you go along in your experiences, your patterns, your habits, the good and the bad. And this is different than perhaps keeping maybe a diary, even though I love diary because it's such a feminine, men write journals, women write diaries. But keeping it, there's that. But I still love the diary. The diary is more record keeping,
Okay.
observations. Yeah. You're not actually analyzing, you're just kind of like recording.
So wow. Okay, that's a really, really new revelation to me here. That
Yeah.
journaling is different from writing. Journal therapy is very different from writing.
Yeah.
Journaling, according to Sarah, is intentional writing. She says, diary, on the other hand, I mean, we are not looking into the gendered bit of it, but diary, she says, is record keeping of
Yes.
all that you do through the day and all that you kind of had to do and could not do, kind of a tab. Journaling, she says, is intention. That's the operative word, I believe. Yeah. So moving on to next question from there on, I'm trying to understand this,
Yes.
Sarah. How can writing help one with emotions?
Yeah. So, writing can help with emotions. If you've ever written in a journal before, you're starting to kind of like free write or dump kind of whatever's on your chest that's most heavy in that moment. Perhaps usually that's when most people turn to a journal, is when they're feeling really heavily burdened with something emotionally. And what happens by just the act and the ritual of writing, you're taking the pressure off of your amygdala. And it's basically registering your emotions less intense. So as you're able to go through the ritual of the writing and the process, you're kind of calming that area of your brain down, which helps with processing and then helps you gain control over whatever you feel so out of control about.
Wow. So that you mean to say that's a method through which you process your own emotions, your own thoughts.
Correct. And it's very scientifically rooted, but then not even just that, anecdotally. I mean, if anyone's written anything, just even a sentence about what they're feeling, just a simple sentence, you know that it starts to kind of decompress your whole being a little bit.
Sarah, I'm going to translate that response in Hindi for our viewers in the line, and then we'll move forward with the next one. तो आप सुन रहे हैं ना, लिखने का काम हमने सभी ने किया है, कभी याद करके लिखा है, कभी पढ़ के लिख लिया है, लेकिन जर्नल लिखना जो है वो अपने आप में एक बहुत सोची समझी प्लानिंग के तहत होता है, और कभी कभी लिखने के दौरान आपके भावनाओं को आप बेहतर समझने लगते हैं। तो लिखना इसलिए जरूरी है क्योंकि खुद को समझना जरूरी है, खुद के भावनात्मक एक्सपीरियंसेस जो उतार चढ़ाव आपकी जिंदगी में ला रहे हैं उसको समझने के लिए कहीं ना कहीं जर्नल लिखना बहुत जरूरी है। So that brings us to the next query that I have here for you is we all have modern life today, yeah, and it's very fast paced.
Yes.
We don't have time to pause. We don't have time to look into our lives in general. Forget about literally writing about it, which in itself sounds like a very tedious job to do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think a journal help in finding your inner voice, a struggle we all face from time to time?
Yeah, I mean, culturally, even in India and in the US, it is fast paced, and that's the way that the system is set up. So that's a whole other topic that I won't broach right here of my disdain for the fastness of it, because it doesn't really afford you time to pause. But I think if we look at journaling or even just writing in terms of small moments that you can reclaim for yourself and honor yourself, it seems less overwhelming. Yes, there's going to be times where you want to journal for an hour, half an hour. But if you take the time consistently, I would say to show up for yourself, 30 minutes a week, maybe forego something that is a distractor for you that's not entirely healthy, maybe forego that 30 minutes scrolling on social media mindlessly, or your television show or something like that, and just take that 30 minutes for you, because by doing that you're really honoring you're slowing down, and you're tapping in. You're not going to be able to hear that voice if you're going, if you're going fast. It's very chaotic, it's very swirly. So basically writing is a way to slow down, and then actually writing with a pencil rather than typing is a way to just slow all of the thoughts and the processes down.
So I hope you're hearing this. If you respect yourself, if you love yourself, if the entire concept of rush in your life comes from the idea of becoming successful or being ambitious, that's for yourself, right? Your own satisfaction. So if you give so much of value to yourself, journaling should be of prime importance. And Sarah says you don't have to bring in 1 hour, half an hour of toiling with pen and paper. She says write with hands, no tick, 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 tick of buttons and machines here. Just the old style, holding the pen, holding the pencil, she specifically says, into your hand and bringing the thoughts out on a piece of paper can do a lot for you. वो कह रही हैं कि अगर आप लिखते हैं, और वो कंप्यूटर वाला लिखना नहीं है, टाइपिंग हम फोन में कर रहे हैं, हम कंप्यूटर में कर रहे हैं, पर वो टाइपिंग जो है वो कहीं ना कहीं आपके भावनाओं से जुड़ी हुई नहीं है। तो वो पारंपरिक तरीका जो था लिखने का, हाथ से लिखना है, पेंसिल से लिखना है, पेन से लिखना है। हालांकि सायरा कह रही है कि आप पेंसिल से लिखें, खुद के लिए लिखें, और आधे घंटे 1 घंटे तक बैठने की जरूरत नहीं है, कुछ चंद मिनट आपके लिए काफी होने चाहिए, उतने में भी आपका काम बन जाएगा। Moving on, Sarah, I want to understand this, and this is personal, very personal here. When you pick up a pen and a paper, it's a very formal process to start with. Okay, it's probably the education system or something. I don't know what got me into this mode, but picking up a piece of paper and a pen and sitting down with it has always been a very formal thing for me. I can't think of personal attachment with that process, you know. So when I bring
Mhm.
out a piece of paper, whether it's you know, the journaling bit or the typing bit, there is always this unseen pressure going on inside, right? It could
Mhm.
be it could be the pressure of writing nice, you know, something that I can come back to and read and be really impressed about it. Or it could be the correctness of what I'm putting down on that piece of paper. All of those things put together can be a barrier in writing. Would you like to talk a little about that? You know, I'm hoping that I find more people echoing with that emotion here
You
among.
will.
Please.
You will. So there is, when you go pen to paper, a certain undercurrent of anxiety that kind of floods and rushes in kind of immediately. And that is definitely rooted in, I would say, the education system, the society, to get it perfect from jump, from the beginning. And you don't, that's the great thing about journaling is you'd have to really put that aside and say, okay, I'm just going to write how I feel authentically. I don't care if it makes sense. It literally doesn't even have to make sense at the moment. You just have to get those words that are on the tip of your tongue, the tip of your brain, and out. And instead of trying to write something great or try to write something, you know, monumental or important, just write. Like, just write. Don't worry about the rest. And some of the ways to kind of get you into that space, I would say, is music helps a lot. A lot of it is just kind of calming you down for that writing ritual to make it not so heavy for you. So, right, you know, listening to music that gets you in the mood of whatever mood you're feeling in, like maybe it's dark music, maybe it's romantic music, you know, whatever emotion you're trying to tap into, I would just really recommend taking time, 10 minutes maybe, to listen to some music. Um, the other thing you can do is start really small, and whether you're feeling all these emotions or not, you get down to the paper. Maybe you say, I'm going to take in the room right now. What's in here? What does it feel like? What's the light like outside? What's the scent that I'm smelling? What are the textures on my fingers? Just really getting you into that sensory kind of mode of observation. And generally, when you do that, it will start, it just builds and builds and builds, and then it taps into the emotion. Another way to do it is to tap into your nostalgia. So things from childhood. You can write about an object from childhood that you really like, love, or that's important to you. And you start writing, okay, what does the object look like? I'm picturing it in my head. What does it smell like? Where did it come from? Why is it important? Why was it not important? And then all of a sudden, this kind of magical thing happens that where you're writing about this object, it becomes personified, and you start inserting yourself in this object and what you felt about it. And some really cool things come out of that. Just recently, if I can offer an example, I was writing about a ballerina from childhood, and it was in this kind of cool, I don't know, it was like a liquor bottle. It's very bizarre, from Europe. And it was passed down from my great grandmother. Anyway, I'm just writing about it, what she looks like. And then suddenly, as I'm writing about the ballerina, I'm like, she's on her tippy toes performing. And even though she's literally drowning in liquid. And that became a moment where I said, wait, I do that. I do that. Even when I'm drowning and feeling like I can't handle the world anymore, um, I'm still on my tippy toes performing sometimes, like everything's fine. So I say that to say there's the magic.
So we have a response here at this point,
Sure.
Sarah. We have of Bohemian Minds. This page agreed with us. You know, mental blockade in writing is very, very common. Apparently,
Mhm.
uh, must have gone through it, and then you know, now kind of your expressions, explanations, echoes with this person makes a lot of sense.
Good.
So anybody who is just like me, right, fearful of a blank page, and
Yes.
the idea of filling it up and filling it up well should not stop you from writing. Should not stop you from writing, because you could pick up absolutely anything and write down absolutely anything. You know,
Right.
and sometimes, like we started on the note that words have been integral part of it. Sometimes Sarah believes that the words that you are using to explain your object kind of reflects on the way you look at yourself, or else the way you operate in certain other cases, the way you look at the world as well. So beautiful. Thank you. I had no idea that, maintaining a journal can have that kind of power over you, and that can have such a deep insight of your own. So आप प्लीज इस बात को समझें कि कई बार जब आप लिख रहे हो, I'm so sorry.
Hi, dog.
Yes, I'm so sorry. So जब आप लिख रहे होते हैं वो अपने आप में बहुत ज्यादा इंटेंस प्रोसेस है। वो जरूरी नहीं है कि आपको अच्छा लिखना है, ये भी जरूरी नहीं है कि आपको सही लिखना है, पर सिर्फ इतना करिए कि किसी भी चीज के बारे में उठाकर कुछ भी लिखना शुरू करिए। कई बार जिन शब्दों का आप इस्तेमाल कर रहे होते हैं, कहीं अचेतन में, सबकॉन्शियस जिसको हम कहते हैं, वो तरीका हो सकता है आपका जीवन देखने का, खुद को देखने का, या शायद आप उस तरीके से अपनी जिंदगी में व्यवहार कर रहे हैं, बिहेव कर रहे हैं, तो वो सारी चीजें उभर कर आपके सामने शब्दों के रूप में आ जाती हैं। सो हाँ, मूविंग ऑन, एक और बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग सवाल मैं आपसे पूछना चाहती हूँ। आई विल आस्क यू अनदर वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन हियर। I have read at places that a dream is a very, very powerful voice that comes from subconscious sometimes, and sometimes from your experiences through the day. And then on another occasion, I have also, stumbled upon the idea of writing dreams. So is dream journaling also a thing? And what does it bring into our life if we kind of maintain a journal for dreams?
Yeah, dream journaling is super cool. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. So it has a few purposes, dreaming, right? Dreaming is dumping your experiences of the day, perhaps, so that you can wake up refreshed and handle the next day. That's kind of one of the purposes that dreams serve. The other purpose is letting you know, ding, 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 signal, something's not right, something's going on, especially if you have a very intense dream, or if you have a reoccurring dream that's intense. So you may be just dealing with something in the moment that you have never dealt with before, and you have this dream that's really intense. So that to you is usually a signal.
Right.
And then the other one is if the same dream keeps coming up. So what you do with dream journaling is basically, I'm sure you've heard, many of you probably heard this before, you stick the journal next to your bed, and then the minute you wake up from your dream, the very second, you scroll down as much detail as you possibly can onto the page. And even if it doesn't make sense kind of in that moment, you're not writing to write a book or a novel at that point. You're literally just dumping whatever you can. What that does is it's starting to train your brain to pay attention, so that next time when you do dream, you're going to have it more vividly. You're going to be able to remember more. It's literally just getting you in that mode. And then you'll find with dream journaling that once you kind of start looking at it, you may be at peace with you, and you're just sitting down with your tea one day and you look at your journal and you're, oh, like that's happened before, or what does that mean? And I'll give an example. I'll try to give an example. Recently with coronavirus, I was living in New Delhi during the lockdown, like all of you, and then was evacuated with the U.S. government. They offered mission flights, especially for people who are high risk, and my daughter is high risk. So we left, and I felt really kind of chaotic, untethered, rootless. I was panicking, having a lot of anxiety. I didn't know that, but so I started having a nightmare that a man was driving on a mountain, and it has actually in Missouri, driving on a Missouri mountain in India, and we drive off the cliff, and I wake up. So then it didn't mean much to me in the moment. But then later I went back to my journal after I wrote it down, and I was like, I'm feeling really out of control. That's what that means. That means I'm feeling out of control, and I need to find some source of control and stability in my life. So it moved me into this feeling of I can't do anything, a recognition of it, and then moved. So the next day I was like, okay, let's lease an apartment in the US. Like if we're going to be here for a while or uncertain time, let me make that step. So the dream journal helped me get to that point because I was just kind of feeling stuck.
So Corona in itself has been traumatic for so many of us. It could be
So many.
the job insecurity, it could be the lockdown, and I mean, in this entire world of keeping yourself busy, you were seriously forced into a standstill moment for the longest time possible. So it's traumatic. And then add to that the uncertainty that you had to go through. I'm sure a lot of people listening to us here will resonate with that. And then comes a dream, you know. So sometimes dreams do not make sense, but they are unsettling nonetheless. You know, and the reason is that the whole day long we keep wondering what led to a dream like that. Sarah says that if you're writing that down, that's again going to help you out figure out your fears, your triggers, and your anxieties. And the moment you know that these are centered around it, you know, it's half the battle won. So you already start working towards resolving them in one way or the other. You try to control of not only emotions, but you also try to deal with the situations better. So thank you, Sarah. We have a question here. I want to take that up right away. So how can we equip ourselves to interpret our dreams? This was quite a journey you mentioned. Yes, it was. I mean, very brave of you, Sarah, indeed.
Yeah. Equipping yourself, like I said, it's just actually the beginning part is acknowledging the dream and writing it out. And then after that, people think a lot of the times that you need to go to a dream interpreter or a psychologist or even someone like me. But the truth is, you really don't. Like, you will be able to pick up on, most likely, if you can tap into that intuitive self that you are and just quiet it for a moment and say to myself, if you're having a dream, why am I, having this dream where I'm driving off a cliff? Why am I having this? Why am I running and I can't get out of the woods? Why am I screaming and nothing is coming out? These things are usually, like I said, either rooted in that kind of like immediate anxiety and fear, or there's something from childhood that's making you have these dreams over and over and over again. And the thing is, you can't interpret a dream right or wrong. You're going to interpret it to whatever speaks most to you at the time and what feels authentic to you. And if you just trust yourself and trust your intuition and trust the work that you're doing, you can trust the meaning that you come up with for yourself.
So I hope that makes sense to you, or that did open a couple of doors for you, Bohemian Mind. See, what happens with most of us is we always feel more confident when we have a trained assistance. Now, Sarah is trying to make you independent then. So she says there is nothing called right or wrong in journaling, in the sense that the kind of emotions that you can put down and not put down cannot have the right or the wrong way. You just have to let it flow. Similarly, she says about dreams as well. You don't have to worry about the dream interpreter's meaning of it. You don't have to worry about what those things in your dream symbolize. If you are connected to the way you are feeling, you anyway end up going through it the whole day long in your head. She says, write it down.
Yes, and may I add, I think you touched on this a little bit. We have been trained as humans to trust other experts in so many things. And I think some of the reason that people do find that journal therapy appeals to them is that they get to trust themselves through the process and not some psychologist. As a journal therapist, I am literally just supporting you, holding space for you, guiding you. I'm not doing the work. Like, you're doing the work, and you're relying on you and trusting yourself. And that's a little bit of a different model than other setups when you're dealing with issues and trying to tap into your emotions.
Right. I think the little child in us always wants to hold that hand.
Yeah.
Says she'll or her method will help you grow in a person who doesn't need that hand, because that hand is you yourself, and that is what we all strive towards all our lives. I mean, that is where most of our fears and anxieties are hiding and sitting quietly until that moment where you feel kind of weak or uncertain about your next move. Know ourselves the best, yes. And there are sometimes not only experiences, but also decisions that we are now very proud of.
Mm-hmm.
And, sharing that with a psychologist could be counterproductive sometimes in your head. I'm not saying that it necessarily will be when you do that, but in
Mm-hmm.
your head, you may kind of be having a session of therapy for the longest time and still be holding that little bit of information to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, thank you so much for helping us understand that. Writing that down will help you, she says. Um, yeah, the inner voice. I would want to dwell a little bit more on that because we have a question coming here on inner voices. Somebody would like you to elaborate on that again. And then there's another question I would want to take that also right away. It says, what about people who have lost the sense of time?
So a sense of time, meaning in their childhood, or sense of time meaning like we're in coronavirus and we're in just perpetual right now all of the time?
A sense of time, in the sense probably you must have set certain goals for yourself and you wanted to achieve it, at a certain in a certain period, and maybe you got so engrossed into it, it didn't work out for the longest time, and you put your head up and you're like, what happened? I don't
Uh,
know, but I would expect the viewer to the person who asked the question to please elaborate on that. We're all just guessing here. So
yeah,
yes,
I mean,
time is lost in then journaling in that process. Yeah.
time is lost. Like I'm trying to understand the question better. Oh, okay. Due to disease, I see this right now. Okay. Um, got it. I'm still not clear whether they mean memory or just the time in
Yeah.
general.
I think it's memory for sure. Yeah.
Okay. With memory, I do think permanent loss of sense. Okay, I get it. Yep. Um, I I think the good thing about this is that going back to a previous time, yes, it's important. Um, but I don't actually think that it is all that productive all the time. If we spend all this time in the past, we tend to just like cycle in the past all the time and never move forward. So to get my clients primed, I usually do one exercise in the past, maybe two, but I don't dwell there because that's really not what I'm about. I'm actually not so concerned about anything that happened before. I'm more concerned about how do we move forward? How do we have whatever problem we have right now and move forward? Um, and the past can inform it just a little bit, but I think there's too much emphasis in general on our past selves. There are wounds that don't heal, and we usually just need one or two journal prompts or sessions to tap into that. But from there on out, we're on this arrow and we're trying to get from this point where we're unhappy or feeling unsettled, and then getting to the next point, which is your vision, your most core, unapologetic, authentic, beautiful, highest self and life. So, so getting away from worrying about the loss of time through memory, while it's disturbing, perhaps, that you can't remember those things, it's not all that necessary to the process to move forward.
Right. Now, moving on to the next question coming from audiences, Sarah. There's a question about inner voice. They would want you to elaborate a little more your own opinions and methods we can use to get in touch with the inner voice while journaling.
Yeah, so inner voice, there's a few ways to tap into it. And journaling is just one. But if I think I mentioned before, if journaling feels too arduous to you or too pressure too much pressure in the moment, I find my inner voice in music a lot. There's certain lyrics that will resonate with me. There's certain beats and harmonies that resonate with me. So that's one way. If you hear a lyric in your head and that speaks to you, that is your inner voice. Another way to tap into it is like quotes and memes on Instagram. If you ever see them and you like feel the I want to send this to a friend, or I want to do this, or I want to post it to my stories, that's your inner voice talking to you. That's that urge right there to like share that piece of verbiage that you're seeing or that image. that is your inner voice speaking to you and showing your most authentic self. You're relating to that material at your very core. Another way to tap in are the usual kind of methods. Yoga, I think a lot of the time you can do that if you're in a right practice that's not kind of competitive and, much more in tune to your body. Another way to do it is through nature, getting outside as much as you can, earbuds maybe in, but nothing through them. So just listen to yourself, listen to what comes up as you're walking. Even just observing, you're looking at trees, you're looking at, birds, you're listening to the birds. Oh my God, there's so many beautiful birds in India to listen to and help you. So if you're, feeling any of these things as you're observing, that's your inner voice too. I'm trying to think about meditation. In meditation, you can do guided, and those are pretty good at tapping into your inner voice. But those are just a few tools that I think the biggest tool and the biggest tip you can use to find your inner voice is just slow the heck down. Just slow the heck down. Because if you don't, you literally will not hear it. You'll never hear it.
And the process of writing does that for you, yeah? Slows you
Yes,
down.
absolutely.
Through journaling, you can find the most dominant emotion that is coming from your inner voice. Am I
Yeah,
correct?
and more so, I mean, even as you're writing, it's something where, your handwriting, even if you're handwriting, say you start off, most of us start off writing in our journal very like perfect penmanship and, it's very clear. But as we start writing and really warming up and getting into that space, we start to all of a sudden see that maybe the handwriting gets a little more erratic. Maybe it's getting bigger. Maybe it's going diagonal on the page. Now you know that you've tapped into something and you're tapping into something powerful. You're tapping into something that is like in deep in your soul and in those caverns of your brain.
Wow. Sarah, one more question, and this is probably off track, but I would still want to go ahead and ask it. Is like I said, a lot of times writing is not exactly about emotions. You may be writing just about anything, and writing in itself leads to a lot of ups and downs of emotions, right? Sitting down with it and writing. Sometimes when I'm writing something and I'm getting it right, yeah, I get fidgety,
Mm.
I get restless, and it's like I can't stick to the chair anymore because
Mm-hmm.
I'm, and then I
Mm-hmm.
stand up and start walking and I start breathing faster, and because I'm getting it. And yeah, and what if something like that happens to somebody while they are dealing with emotions when they're journaling? That be a discouraging thing? I mean, is there something that you would want to add to somebody, somebody going through that experience? How would you deal?
Yeah, I think once you start kind of really downloading those emotions, especially the strong ones, we have the urge to distract, grab my phone, I need to look at something, get up, walk. Um, those signals right there, even if you're just picking up on that feeling, that urge, that right there is telling you this is what you need to face right here, right now. So double down on it. Um, or if you're not the doubling down kind, I do want to offer another option, which is you can take a break, but don't take a break and fill your mind up with something else or some other activity. Just step away from the page, and just breathe, again, or listen to a song or do something like that. But don't feel the urge to just go ahead and distract yourself from that. Usually, when you're feeling like, oh my God, I got to get up, that's telling you, no, you need to sit down and deal with this.
So deal with it, guys. Deal with
Yeah.
your emotion, and that's going to shape your entire life. You can take up a very, very beautiful career that you're attached to, but if you're not facing it because there are other distractions and you're falling prey to distractions, you're not getting anywhere. Even if you know your job really well and every little thing around you disturbs you, or something in particular is disturbing you to a point where resolving that becomes the pressing issue and nothing functions the way you would want to in your mind and body and heart,
Mm-hmm.
get to writing and work that out is what Sarah is saying. Three things that Sarah points out here is, it's the best way to slow your pace down, yoga and music and this and that. Everything in form of a medium is available to you, but this will clarify things for you and keep them in record.
Mm-hmm.
You can always flip your pages through and go back to that emotion and see if those patterns are being repeated or not. But before I get on to explaining that in Hindi, the other thing that Sarah says, which I get to hear uh, very important people repeating over and over again, is don't dwell in the past. The memories that you collect while you're growing up have been given a lot of importance because a lot of our fears and anxieties crop up from there. Sarah says that deal with one emotion at a time when it comes. And that too, she says, don't sit on it for too long. It may not just be the best idea. The idea is to move forward one emotion at a time while you are writing. And then the next plan that you are making is probably more important for Sarah. Sarah, that brings us to our next, next concept understanding here with you. You mentioned about inner voice. You mentioned about memories. And you mentioned about fears and anxiety, and to work with it. So what I'm saying is, how regular should journaling be done?
Yeah.
Actually, something considerable on daily basis. So how many times should you sit down and start writing through a week? Let's start.
Yeah. I mean, consistent journaling is important because if you're doing it consistently, it's a way that you'll be able to show up, right? And then use those kind of pages previously to go back to see how far you've come and to recognize patterns and behaviors that you're kind of repeating, whether you want to repeat them or not. It's just so I would recommend. I don't think that you have to do it every day. I mean, there's a lot of journal enthusiasts that will say that you should do it every single day and wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I just don't subscribe to that. I actually think if you're doing it once a week at the very least, I think that's enough. I don't really love the idea of bogging yourself down with another thing to do during the day because you're just never going to want to show up on the page if it's like that. The only other thing I would recommend, okay, once a week, make it a ritual, light the candles, make your chai masala or have someone make it for you, and make it a special kind of moment in your day. And it doesn't have to be long. Again, 30 minutes, I think minimal. And you could go longer. I go longer because I'm wordy. So it takes like an hour to get it all out. But so I would say at least once a week.
Oh, beautiful. I think that's a very powerful thing she said, like, yeah, whatever. But no, please note that, guys, some of us are super ambitious. Some of us want to be overachievers for the rest of our lives, Sarah says, please don't do journaling with a purpose. She says, do journaling with love.
Yeah, love for yourself and then love for the journey. It's all about just the exploration of it. You have no idea where you're going to go, and that's really the best part of it.
She says it's not the next assignment of the day. She says, hold it like a cup of tea every evening or maybe once a week. This is your safe place to go to, she says. So it's not something that you're doing only to achieve a particular purpose. This is something that you're doing to come back home to yourself. And I think that makes a lot of sense to me, So thank you, Sarah. That's like beautiful point out there. And said it so simply, matter of factly, like, yeah, beautiful. And I hope we can, kind of do that in our lives and bring it in our lives like a practice, like a good, beautiful thing that we look forward to.
Just very sacred and gentle is what I would say.
Yeah, beautiful. Now, when I'm talking about journaling and I'm talking about routine and I'm talking about where to set this in my entire day's routine, it's not every day that we go through strong emotions. And you covered that, of course, that, maybe do it once a week, go through the things that had an impact on it. How important is doing that? And in my words, how important is reevaluating yourself? And how does a journal help us in uncovering patterns? Because most of the times when, at least I am talking about myself, I'm super defensive. I'm not open to somebody saying you went wrong. I hate that. I seriously hate that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, and most of the time, we don't totally need a person to tell us that we're being a certain way. We kind of intuitively already know that we have these behaviors that, keep happening over and over and over again. I have mine. God, I wish they would leave. I do, but I think that's a lofty goal. So I'm just going to be gentle with myself and tell myself I'm going to work on them and do them less. That's really, so yeah, when you're going through your journal and you're going back through it and you notice, okay, here, when I was triggered here, this is how I reacted. When I was triggered in this way, this is how I reacted. And whether that's being triggered in your romantic relationships, familial relationships, your job, friendships, you'll notice if you're writing it down consistently for a while, you'll see kind of where you get tripped up and fall into those old habits and in those old wounds and maybe aren't putting forth your highest, most beautiful self. So anyway, I don't think the goal is to eradicate these behaviors. I do think the goal is to acknowledge them, to not do as much harm, to lessen the harm of those behaviors, and then to forgive yourself and forgive yourself for being just really human. And you're going to have these non-linear healing moments, and we're all aspiring to be better and better and like healed and growth, but you're going to trip up. I mean, and just holding space for yourself in that light. I think your journal can do that for you. It can be that safe space where you go and forgive yourself and you're honest with yourself and just try harder next time.
How many times have you gone out with friends for a drink or two, or maybe just hanging out, and you maybe shared something with the friend, something that may have happened in the office, and the friend turns around and says, "Did you do this all the time? This is like usual you," and you're like, "Oh, whoa, where is this coming from?" Says, go back to your journal, turn your pages around, and see. While you're being kind to yourself, while you're being nice to yourself, it also helps you not take that person too seriously, and at the same time, it helps you discover the truth about you. So Sarah says re-evaluating or finding or tracing the patterns could be a much easier and fun thing to do when you're doing it just with yourself and your journey. Thank you, Sarah. That's again beautiful. I don't know how many times my friends would have turned, yeah, you do this all the time. Like, why are you even surprised? And I am surprised. I'm genuinely surprised. Because all this time I thought I'm a good person.
You are a good person. It's okay. You can be a good person.
Like so. Yeah. On that lighter note, I would say, so many of us have been in that position. So many of us have felt that, on a serious note. I mean, even though I'm joking about it, some of us, when we're going through it, it's not funny. It's not funny at all. Right?
No.
Yeah. And
no, and there has been times, I'm sorry, I think I didn't hear, there was a delay. But there was times that, like, a boss of mine several years ago at a magazine called me out on some really behavior that I was not proud of. And it was behavior that I had repeated in other areas of my life. And I did it on the job, and it took her to be honest with me. So, I mean, accountability between people is good, and being honest with people is good. If your intention there is to just let them know rather than like tear them down. And her intention was totally to let me know, and to help me grow. And it was a very kind of loving, honest, firm, but yeah, here's what's going. And then I journaled about it, and I was like, oh, maybe I need to go to therapy for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be intense, and it could be smallest of things. I don't know if what triggers is the fact that we've been trying to hide that from our own selves for the longest time. Or is it because, how could have I not seen this happen? So I don't know what gets you there, but like Sarah says, your journal will come to your rescue yet again. From reflecting on myself, my behavior, my growth, everything positive and negative about me, just between me and my journal. Sarah, you have a compliment going on, and I think I want to take this right now. So Ekta says, Sarah is one of my favorite humans.
I
So
feel the
yeah,
same way about Ekta. I do. She is one of my favorite humans, and she is a champion of women. She's a champion of children, and she's a champion of humans. She really is.
I love the name, Humanizing Life.
Yeah.
So, so since I'm talking about reflecting onto yourself, the emotions that you're going through and all of that, how about talking a little bit here about honesty? Yeah, we
Honesty.
already, I
Ooh.
think, in question discussed that in the last question, but I would still want to talk about the idea of being honest to your journal. Is that a thing, or it's just something coming up in my head?
It should be a thing. Being honest in your journal is really the only reason you should be showing up. If you're gonna lie in your journal, you just kind of cheat yourself out of the whole experience. You cheat yourself out of healing and growth. So journaling should be your safe space. Now, some people from childhood may have had a parent read their journal, or they may have had a situation where a partner did. And so that can be triggering, and it can be hard for them to overcome the idea that the journal is the safe space. So for those folks, I mean, I would just encourage them to try to rebuild that relationship with journaling and repair that, because it can be super tough to get back in that space if that safe space was taken away from you at some point in time. But other than that, showing up on that page, honestly, it's literally almost like word vomit. Like the only the only kind of phrase I can think of is the first thing that pops in your head is ugly or crazy or whatever. Like, don't judge it, just get it down. And that's the honest thought. And you may be afraid of it, and maybe we'll all be afraid of it. But the point is, I'm not seeing your journal, so I could care less. Only you are seeing that. And you're bound to be afraid by the things that you say. You're going to be shocked, you're going to be surprised. Um, but I think not judging yourself is the way you're going to keep showing up consistently and honestly on that page and authentically, because if you're not, why else are you doing it?
Powerful, powerful. So you have to be honest with yourself. Like everything else in life, more than anything else, you have to be honest to yourself. You know, by the end of the day, you've got to live with yourself, no matter how fast and hard you're trying to run away with your job in sight, with your family in sight, with your responsibilities in your sight. You still have to live with yourself more than anybody else. So Sarah says, honesty to that piece of paper and absolutely no judgment.
No, and honestly, it's such a sad revelation in a way, but not really, but you're the only person that can save you in the end, you know? Yeah, you'll have your support system, you have your parents, you may have your partner, your friends, but in the end, it's you. It's you, your words, your voice, and your growth. And so it's all up to you to just be honest, and that's the first hardest step. The rest is easy.
That brings us to the final question of today, for today, Sarah, of the session. So we've already, you in the beginning itself kind of set apart the two practices, keeping the diary and keeping the journal. But if I am being honest to myself, then my ambitions and dreams, both of them are time and again going to show up in that journal.
Hmm.
So does journaling also help me reach my goals? Does any kind of it does, or ensuring that I, at least attempt to live up to the plans that I made? Can journals also do that like that too?
Yeah, so I offer my clients, usually when they're feeling stuck in some type of way in their life, it's usually career that comes up a lot. There's a way to do a vision journaling, which basically, and this is something that anybody can do. I can give a quick rundown, but you kind of identify what your core values are, like the things that you hold super dear to you, in one table, and write as many as you can possibly down. And then you get to the second column, and you kind of weed some out that don't totally speak to you. Then the third column is usually like your 3 to 5 main big values that you hold really dear to your heart. And then the second part of this journal prompt is we go in and I say, what does your vision look like for the future in, say, 5 years? What does it look like? Who's around you? What are you doing in your job? Who do you want to be impacting? What do those people look like? And then the third part of that journal prompt is, where are your values and your vision aligning? Where are they not aligning? So that's kind of a way to get clear in your life on your goals overall. And then it's also clear to show where the shortfall is. And it's important to remember that the shortfall, once you identify it and name it, that's the hardest part. The rest is you just identify the steps. Do I need more schooling to impact the people I'm trying to impact? Do I need accreditation? Do I need to take a trip? Do I need to do some more whatever, I don't know, cooking classes to become the chef that I want to become? You know, those steps become really clear, that middle ground where you notice, here are my values, here's what I hold dear, here's what my vision is, here's where they're not jiving, here's where they're not lining up. That middle ground, that gray space, that's where you work. That's where you figure it out.
Okay, I want you to please pay some attention to what she just said. I mean, this is huge. This is so huge. So as many times as people would walk up to you and say, you know what, validation is not important. Yes, validation from others is definitely not important. Mm-hmm. But validation is what keeps you going. It could be a validation of your own self to your own self.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She says, write them down. Ultimately, we express emotions as children as well, but there are no words, you know, you only cry. There's just one kind of expression. As you grow up, the conditioning teaches you to use words. Sarah says, use them as tools. People write it on Instagram, on Facebook, on WhatsApp. You know, keep getting these messages. And, you know, there are people around you who would keep saying, you know, find your callings, you know, keep working at it till you feel passionate about it so much so that you don't feel like taking a break and this and that. Sarah says all those feelings will come to you if they're connected to your value system.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah says, more importantly, there is always a group of audiences that you're looking forward to, that you want to feel appreciated by. You've got to decide who those audiences are. And your journals may help you do that as well. On that note, Sarah, there's so much to learn in this. I think I myself will have to go through this video multiple times to, you know, keep understanding the amount of lessons I'm getting from this interaction. It's not a one-time watch that is enough. But then again, I would still kind of want you to give out a message to the audiences that kind of puts the idea forward for them in nutshell.
Sure. I think about it, and maybe in 3 tiers of a message, if that's okay. I love threes. I think the first, if we're trying to really hit home on some of the things that I think are important with journaling and with your words, the one is really, really trust yourself. Really, like, you hold the answers, you really do. And I know that sounds elusive, but when you actually go through the journaling process, it's not magical anymore. There's an actual, it's so formulaic, it's so there, it's so at your it's so accessible, and it's just up to you to access that. So trusting you and trusting that voice. The other thing is stuck. That's just your invitation and your opportunity to name why you're stuck and find the steps to get unstuck. That is literally all that feeling, that nagging feeling of stuck in your life in any way that it is. That's all that it's telling you. It's just your signal to say, hey, go deeper, identify what's going on here, and now look at the steps. You will become a master learner of steps, and just becoming an expert in your life. And then the last one is, I think this is really just my biggest thing, is don't be sorry for it. Don't apologize. Just be you and just show up as authentically as you can, because when you do that, it's the most beautiful. Yeah, I think that's it.
Beautiful, beautiful said. I mean, I don't know. I have been so deeply impacted so many times that I have had to kind of take a break before I respond to you. But that this was intense. This is what I call intense, and this was
Oh, good.
beautiful. You know? And thank you for agreeing to be with us, and thank you for discussing things the way you did, and the beautiful expressions that you used to explain. I know part of me already knows a very complicated process,
Mm.
right? And then looking at those expressions on a piece of paper is not an easy thing.
No.
And you explained like it's nothing, just have fun with yourself, right?
Take the
So
pressure off.
देखिए आप किसी के लिए नहीं लिख रहे हैं, आप खुद अपने लिए लिख रहे हैं, तो लिखते रहिए, अच्छा लिखिए, खराब लिखिए, बुरा लिखिए, बस लिखते रहिए। और ये लिखना जो है ईमानदार लिखना होना चाहिए। आप किसी के लिए नहीं, आप अपने लिए भी नहीं लिख रहे जब तक आपका दिल ना करे उसको कहीं रख दो छुपा के। अगले हफ्ते फिर नए पेज से शुरू करेंगे। शायद जिंदगी रेप्लिकेट कर रही है अपने आप को उस जर्नल में कि हर दूसरे दिन आप नया पन्ना खोल रहे थे, न्यू पेज एवरी डे। तो वो कर लीजिए। और जब दिल करे, जैसे हम कहीं बैठे चाय की चुस्की लगाते हैं और बातें करते, ऐसा लगता है हमें अरे वहां कुछ हुआ, ऐसा कुछ लगे भावनात्मक तौर पर, गो बैक टू योर पेज, टर्न योर पेजेस अराउंड एंड लुक, पन्ने पलटिए और जिंदगी जी लीजिए। ये सब करने का एकमात्र उद्देश्य है, आपका मुस्कुराते रहो। So like I say every time, smile, smile wide and bright. And if you can't do that, get in touch with us. We'll help you do that. Till then,
Sure.
thank you so much for listening to us patiently. Thank you so much, Sarah, for being with us. Until we see you again, it's a goodbye.
Dhanyavad, and thank you.